She's here and she's carrying. Ethan Maxwell's heart stuttered, his world tilting as Maya Jenkins stepped into the room, her presence commanding, her pregnant silhouette a silent rebuke to his past choices. Once his anchor, now a stranger radiating unshakable grace, she unraveled the life he thought he'd mastered. Welcome to a tale where love fractures, betrayal cuts deep, and redemption demands courage. If this stirs your soul, please subscribe and share where you're joining us from, perhaps Los Angeles under starlit skies or London at dawn, and let us know the hour you're in. Maya's odyssey from devastation to defiance will captivate you, revealing truths that linger long after the final word. Her strength rewrites the ruins of her past, and her story will hold you until its breathtaking end. The Atlanta skyline shimmered under the golden haze of a summer evening, its glass towers catching the last rays of sunlight. In a cozy loft apartment overlooking Piedmont Park, Maya Jenkins laughed as she spun in Ethan Maxwell's arms, their bare feet brushing the hardwood floor. "You're going to drop me, Ethan," she teased, her voice warm, her dark eyes sparkling with trust. Ethan, his blue eyes crinkling with mischief, tightened his grip. "Never, Maya. You're stuck with me." Their laughter filled the room, a melody of two souls intertwined, unburdened by the world outside. They were young, in love, and invincible, a black college student with dreams of changing the world through art, and a white software engineer with a spark of ambition that Maya fanned into flame. 5 years ago, they'd met at a Georgia Tech hackathon. Maya, a senior studying sociology, had slipped into the event to sketch the chaos of coders hunched over laptops. Ethan, lanky and intense, had noticed her first, captivated by the way her pencil danced across the page, capturing life in bold strokes. By sunrise, they were sharing coffee and dreams, their differences in background, her modest upbringing in a tight-knit Atlanta family, his privileged suburban roots, melting away in the face of their shared fire. They built a life together, brick by brick, in that loft where love was their currency. Fast forward to 2025, and Ethan's startup, Maxwell Tech, had erupted into a tech empire. At 35, he was Atlanta's golden boy, a millionaire CEO whose face graced Forbes covers. Maya, now 32, stood by him, her quiet strength anchoring his meteoric rise. She managed their home, planned their dinners, and smiled at his side during glitzy galas, even when the small talk of venture capitalists bored her. Her own dreams, running a community art program, took a back seat, but she didn't mind. Ethan's success felt like theirs, a shared triumph born of late-night pep talks and her unwavering belief in him. Yet beneath the surface, cracks were forming. It started subtly, like a hairline fracture in glass. Ethan's phone buzzed constantly now, pulling him away from their candlelit dinners. "Just one more meeting, Maya," he'd say, his voice distracted, his eyes on his screen. She'd nod, swallowing the ache, telling herself it was the price of his dreams. But the man who once stayed up debating philosophy with her now spoke in clipped sentences, his warmth replaced by a restless energy. Maya felt it, the slow drift of a tide pulling them apart. One evening, at a rooftop gala hosted by a tech mogul, the fracture deepened. The venue glittered with Atlanta's elite, their diamonds flashing under chandeliers. Maya, in a sleek emerald dress that hugged her curves, stood beside Ethan, her smile practiced but genuine. She chatted with investors' wives, deflecting their veiled curiosity about her background with grace. But Ethan's attention wandered. Across the room, Tiffany Sterling glided in, her platinum hair catching the light, her red gown a calculated statement. The daughter of a real estate tycoon, Tiffany moved with the confidence of someone born into power. Her eyes locked on Ethan, and Maya felt a chill. Tiffany approached, her smile sharp as a blade. "Ethan Maxwell," she purred, extending a manicured hand. "I've heard so much about you." Ethan's posture shifted, his charm dialed up as he shook her hand a moment too long. Maya watched, her stomach twisting, as Tiffany leaned closer, her laughter too bright, her questions too pointed. She was a predator circling, and Ethan, dazzled by her pedigree and poise, didn't pull away. Maya sipped her wine, her smile unwavering, But inside, she felt the first stab of doubt. Over the next weeks, Ethan's absences grew. Late nights at the office became routine, his excuses thin. "It's a big deal, Maya. I can't say no to these people," he'd snap when she pressed him. Their loft, once a haven, felt hollow. Maya tried to bridge the gap, planning a quiet weekend getaway, but Ethan canceled at the last minute. A critical meeting with investors, he claimed. She sat alone that night, sketching in her journal, her lines sharp and jagged, mirroring the unease in her heart. One memory haunted her, a charity auction where Tiffany appeared again, this time on Ethan's arm as a business associate. Maya, relegated to the sidelines, watched Tiffany's hand linger on Ethan's sleeve, her laughter cutting through the crowd. Ethan didn't pull away. Later, in the car, Maya's voice trembled as she asked, "Who is she to you, Ethan?" He sighed, his jaw tight. "She's nobody, Maya, just business." But his eyes wouldn't meet hers, and the lie hung heavy between them. Maya lay awake that night, the city's hum outside their window, a stark contrast to the silence in their bed. She traced the curve of Ethan's sleeping form, remembering the boy who'd promised her forever. Now he was a stranger, seduced by a world of wealth and status she could never fully enter. She thought of her mother's words. "Love is work, baby, but it's worth it if it's real." Was it still real? Maya didn't know anymore, but the ache in her chest grew sharper, a warning of the storm to come. She didn't see it yet, but the life she'd built with Ethan was crumbling, and Tiffany Sterling was the catalyst, her ambition cloaked in charm. Maya's love, once her strength, was becoming her vulnerability. As she drifted to sleep, one thought lingered. She would fight for them, for the dawn they'd shared. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that some battles were already lost. The Atlanta rain battered the loft's windows, a relentless drumbeat mirroring the turmoil in Maya Jenkins' heart. It was a Thursday night, and the air inside felt thick, charged with an unspoken dread. Ethan Maxwell stood by the kitchen island, his broad shoulders hunched, his eyes avoiding hers. The man who once filled their home with laughter now looked like a stranger, his jaw set, his hands gripping a glass of bourbon. Maya sat on the couch, her sketchbook abandoned, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. The silence between them was a chasm, and she sensed the storm about to break. "I want a divorce," Ethan said finally, his voice flat, slicing through the quiet like a blade. Maya's breath caught, her world tilting. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Ethan didn't repeat himself. He didn't need to. The words hung there, cold and final, shattering the life they'd built. I don't feel it anymore, Maya. I need space. You don't fit into my world now." His words were rehearsed, devoid of the warmth she once knew. Maya's chest tightened, her mind racing to grasp the impossible. "Ethan, we can fix this," she pleaded, rising to her feet, her dark eyes searching his face for the man she loved. "We've always worked through things. Talk to me." But Ethan's gaze was distant, his resolve unyielding. "There's nothing to fix," he said, turning away, as if her pain was an inconvenience. Maya's knees weakened, but she stood tall, her voice trembling with a mix of hurt and defiance. "Is there someone else?" The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Ethan hesitated, a split second too long, and Maya's heart plummeted. She knew. The truth unraveled over the next days, each revelation a fresh wound. Maya found the first clue in Ethan's phone, left carelessly on the counter, a string of messages from Tiffany Sterling, their tone too intimate, too familiar. "Meet me at the Ritz tonight," one read, followed by a winking emoji that made Maya's stomach churn. She confronted him that evening, her voice shaking with fury and pain. "How long, Ethan? How long have you been lying to me?" He stood in their living room, his tailored suit a stark contrast to her tear-streaked face. "It's not what you think," he started, but his words faltered under her gaze. Then coldly, he admitted it. "Tiffany gets me, Maya. She fits this life. You don't." The final blow came at a downtown cafe, where Maya, driven by a need for closure, agreed to meet Tiffany. The woman sat across from her, her red lipstick perfect, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Ethan's moved on, sweetheart," Tiffany said, her voice dripping with condescension. He needs someone who can keep up with him. You're sweet, but you're out of your depth. Maya's hands clenched under the table, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, to upend the table, but she held her composure, her dignity her only shield. You don't know him like I do, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. Tiffany's laugh was sharp, dismissive. Oh, honey, I know him better than you think. The divorce proceedings were swift, Ethan's lawyers ruthless. Maya, still reeling, refused to fight for his wealth. She signed the papers, taking only what she needed to start over. A small settlement, enough for a modest apartment. Her pride wouldn't let her beg, but the pain was a living thing, clawing at her as she packed her belongings, each item a memory of a life now lost. The loft, once their sanctuary, echoed with her footsteps as she walked out, her heart a battlefield of love and betrayal. Weeks later, alone in a cramped studio apartment, Maya faced a new shock. A missed period, a drugstore test, and a doctor's visit confirmed it. She was pregnant. The news hit like a tidal wave, joy and terror colliding. She sat on her narrow bed, her hand resting on her still flat stomach, tears streaming down her face. This child was a piece of Ethan, the man who'd shattered her, but also a piece of her, a new beginning she hadn't dared to imagine. She thought of telling him, of demanding he take responsibility, but the memory of his cold eyes stopped her. He'd made his choice. Tiffany's mocking voice echoed in her mind, and Maya's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let them define her future. Maya made a vow that night, under the dim glow of a single lamp. She would protect this child, build a life for them both, without Ethan's shadow. The betrayal had gutted her, but she was still standing, her spirit unbroken. She thought of her mother's strength, her grandmother's resilience, the women who'd raised her to rise above pain. This baby was her reason now, her anchor in the storm. She wouldn't tell Ethan. Not yet, maybe not ever. He'd lost the right to know. As she curled up under a thin blanket, the rain outside softening to a whisper, Maya felt a flicker of hope. The storm had torn her world apart, but she would rebuild, stronger, fiercer, for herself and the life growing inside her. The Atlanta morning buzzed with life outside Maya Jenkins' new studio apartment, a modest space tucked in a quiet corner of Midtown. The walls were bare, the furniture secondhand, and the air carried the faint scent of fresh paint, a far cry from the loft she'd once called home. At 32, Maya stood in front of a cracked mirror, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, her dark eyes tracing the reflection of a woman remade by pain. The divorce had stripped her of her old life, but the child growing inside her was a spark of purpose, a reason to rise each day. Yet the road ahead loomed daunting, a tightrope walk over financial strain and emotional scars. Maya squared her shoulders, whispering to her unborn child, "We've got this, you and me." Money was tight. The settlement from Ethan covered rent, but little else. Maya's sociology degree, once a point of pride, felt like a relic in a job market that demanded experience she hadn't had time to build while supporting Ethan's dreams. She scoured job listings, her laptop screen glowing late into the night. Rejection emails stung, each one a reminder of her vulnerability. But Maya refused to break. She thought of her mother, who'd raised 3 kids alone in a tougher part of Atlanta, and her resolve hardened. She wouldn't let this city or Ethan's betrayal define her. Her lifeline came in the form of her family and friends, a constellation of love that held her steady. Her best friend Naya, a vibrant graphic designer with a laugh that could light up a room, showed up with takeout and tough love. "You're Maya Jenkins," Nia said one evening, plopping onto the couch with a carton of low mine. "You've got a heart bigger than this city and a brain to match. You'll figure it out." Maya's older cousin, Ms. Loretta, a retired social worker, became her mentor, guiding her through the chaos with wisdom and warm hugs. "Pain's a teacher, baby," Loretta said, her voice steady. "Let it show you who you are." Their support was a balm, stitching together the pieces of Maya's fractured spirit. Determined to rebuild, Maya enrolled in a prenatal class at a community center, where she learned to breathe through fear as much as labor. The other mothers-to-be, a mix of young women from all walks of life, became an unexpected sisterhood. They shared stories, fears, and tips over herbal tea, their laughter a reminder that joy could still exist. Maya also found a part-time job as a program coordinator at a local nonprofit, organizing art workshops for underserved youth. The pay was modest, but the work lit a fire in her. She poured her passion into it, sketching vibrant murals with the kids, their chatter filling the void Ethan had left. Each smile she coaxed from a shy teenager felt like a victory, a step toward reclaiming herself. The nights were harder. Alone in her apartment, Maya wrestled with memories of Ethan's cold dismissal and Tiffany's smug cruelty. She'd wake from dreams of their old life, her chest tight with grief. But she refused to linger in despair. She started an online Etsy shop, selling prints of her sketches, bold, colorful pieces inspired by Atlanta's streets and her own resilience. Orders trickled in, each sale a small triumph. She saved every penny, dreaming of a crib, a stroller, a future where her child would know love without limits. Her pregnancy, now in its second trimester, brought new challenges. Morning sickness lingered, and exhaustion clung to her like a shadow. Yet it also brought clarity. Maya read books on single motherhood, her fingers tracing pages about strength and sacrifice. She journaled, not just sketches now, but words, letters to her unborn child, promises to be enough. "You'll know you're loved," she wrote one night, tears smudging the ink. "You'll know you're enough." The act of writing grounded her, a ritual of hope in a world that felt unsteady. One afternoon, while sorting supplies at the nonprofit, Maya caught her reflection in a window. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her face bare of makeup, but there was a fire in her eyes she hadn't seen in months. She wasn't the woman Ethan had discarded. She was Maya Jenkins, artist, survivor, soon-to-be mother. The realization hit like a wave, washing away the last traces of self-doubt. She didn't need his validation or Tiffany's approval to thrive. Her strength was her own, forged in the crucible of betrayal. As spring bloomed across Atlanta, Maya's life took root in new soil. Her Etsy shop gained traction, her job offered purpose, and her belly grew, a quiet reminder of the life she was building. Nia threw her a small baby shower, filled with laughter and handmade gifts. Loretta gifted her a quilt, stitched with love, for you and that little one to dream under. Maya held it close, her heart full. The city outside her window hummed with possibility, and for the first time in months, she felt its pulse sync with her own. She wasn't just surviving, she was rising, her strength a beacon, her child her North Star, guiding her toward a future she'd carve with her own hands. The ballroom of Atlanta's Four Seasons Hotel glittered like a constellation, its chandeliers casting a warm glow over the city's elite. The occasion was Maxwell Tech's latest product launch, a spectacle of innovation and ambition, drawing tech moguls, influencers, and investors in tailored suits and shimmering gowns. Maya Jenkins hadn't planned to be there. At 7 months pregnant, her focus was on her nonprofit work and her growing Etsy shop, not the world of wealth she'd left behind. But Nia, her fiercely loyal friend, had insisted, thrusting an invitation into her hands. "You're not hiding anymore, Maya," Nia had said, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Show them who you are." So Maya stood at the entrance, her navy blue dress draping elegantly over her pregnant belly, her chin high, her heart a mix of nerves and defiance. Inside, Ethan Maxwell worked the room, his charisma a polished weapon. At 35, he was at the peak of his power, his tech empire soaring, his new wife, Tiffany Sterling, at his side. Their marriage, barely 6 months old, was a glittering facade, but beneath it, cracks were already forming. Tiffany's demands were relentless: new cars, charity galas, a penthouse redecoration, her voice sharp with entitlement. Ethan, once dazzled by her allure, now felt the weight of her control, their conversations laced with tension. Tonight, though, they played their parts, smiling for the cameras. Tiffany's red gown a bold statement, her hand possessive on Ethan's arm. Maya's entrance was quiet, almost unnoticed at first. She moved with a grace that belied her pregnancy, her dark eyes scanning the room, her braided updo catching the light. Nia beside her whispered, "You've got this, Queen." Maya smiled, drawing strength from her friend's presence. She wasn't here to confront anyone, only to support a colleague whose nonprofit had partnered with the event. But as she stepped further into the crowd, heads turned, whispers rippled. Her pregnancy, now unmistakable, drew curious glances, and her serene confidence commanded attention. She was no longer Ethan's shadow. She was Maya Jenkins, radiant and unbroken. Ethan saw her first. Across the room, his glass froze mid-sip, his breath catching as if the air had been sucked out. Maya, glowing with a strength he'd never seen, stood like a vision from a life he'd discarded. Her belly, round with life, hit him like a physical blow. Pregnant? His mind reeled, questions crashing through him. Whose? When? The room blurred, the chatter fading as his past rushed back, her laughter, her warmth, the love he'd betrayed. Tiffany, sensing his shift, followed his gaze. Her smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as they landed on Maya. "What is she doing here?" Tiffany hissed, her voice venomous, her grip tightening on Ethan's arm. Maya felt their stares but didn't flinch. She moved through the crowd, greeting her colleague with a warm smile, her poise unshakable. She wasn't here for Ethan or Tiffany. She was here for herself, for the woman she'd become. But the weight of their eyes followed her, Ethan's shock palpable, Tiffany's fury a simmering storm. When Maya's gaze briefly met Ethan's, she offered nothing. No anger, no pain, just a calm detachment that cut deeper than any words. She turned away, engaging in conversation, her laughter soft but genuine, a sound that haunted Ethan's memory. Tiffany's composure cracked. She leaned into Ethan, her voice low and sharp. "You didn't tell me she'd be here. And pregnant? What is this, Ethan?" He shook his head, unable to speak, his mind a tangle of guilt and confusion. He tried to approach Maya, weaving through the crowd, but she sidestepped him effortlessly, her focus on her colleague. "Maya," he called softly, his voice almost lost in the din. She didn't turn. Her dismissal was a blade slicing through his arrogance, leaving him exposed. Tiffany, watching, felt a surge of panic. Maya's presence, her undeniable glow, threatened the carefully curated life she'd built. The event continued, but the air had shifted. Maya's appearance sparked murmurs among the guests. Her story, a woman wronged, now rising, whispered in corners. Ethan couldn't focus. His speech faltered as he took the stage, his eyes drifting to Maya. She stood near the back, her hand resting lightly on her belly, a symbol of life moving forward without him. Tiffany, meanwhile, clung to her role as the perfect wife, but her smiles were forced, her glances at Maya laced with dread. She sensed the tide turning, her control slipping. As the night ended, Maya left as quietly as she'd arrived, Nia at her side, their laughter a soft rebellion against the past. Ethan watched her go, his heart heavy with a truth he wasn't ready to face. He'd lost something irreplaceable. Tiffany's hand on his arm felt like a shackle now, her voice grating as she demanded they leave. Maya's resurrection, her strength in the face of his betrayal, had shaken them both, exposing the fragility of their world. For Maya, the night was a quiet triumph, a reminder that she was no longer defined by their choices. She stepped into the Atlanta night, her future bright, her child her anchor, ready to face whatever came next. The Atlanta skyline glittered beyond the penthouse windows, but inside Ethan Maxwell's world, the air was thick with tension. Days after the gala, Maya Jenkins' radiant presence haunted him, her pregnant silhouette, her serene defiance, a mirror to his regrets. The image of her belly carrying a child he hadn't known about gnawed at him, unraveling the life he'd built with Tiffany Sterling. Their marriage, already strained by her relentless demands, now teetered on the edge. Tiffany paced the marble floor, her heels clicking like a metronome of rage. "She's trying to ruin us, Ethan," she snapped, her platinum hair catching the lamplight. "Showing up like that, pregnant, to humiliate me." Ethan's silence, heavy with guilt, only fueled her fury. He couldn't shake the question. Was the child his? Maya, meanwhile, was carving out her piece in her Midtown studio. Her days were filled with purpose, coordinating art workshops, sketching for her Etsy shop, and preparing for motherhood. Yet the gala had stirred ripples. Her phone buzzed with messages from old acquaintances, their curiosity veiled as concern. "Is Ethan the father?" one asked. Maya ignored them, her focus on the crib she was assembling, her hands steady despite the storm brewing. She'd chosen silence about her pregnancy, protecting her child from Ethan's chaos. But Ethan had other plans. He called, left voicemails, each one more insistent. "Maya, we need to talk. Is it mine?" She deleted them, her heart a fortress, unwilling to let him disrupt her hard-won calm. Ethan's persistence escalated. One evening, he appeared at her apartment, his tailored coat damp from the autumn drizzle. Maya opened the door, her expression icy, her hand protectively on her belly. "What do you want, Ethan?" she asked, her voice low, unyielding. His eyes, once so familiar, were wild with desperation. "I need to know, Maya. Is the baby mine?" She studied him, the man who'd shattered her, now diminished by his own choices. "You lost the right to ask that when you walked away," she said, her words cutting deep. She closed the door, her heart pounding, but her resolve unbroken. Ethan stood in the rain, the weight of her rejection sinking in. Tiffany, meanwhile, saw Maya's reemergence as a threat to her carefully curated empire. Her paranoia festered, driving her to reckless action. She hired a private investigator, a shady figure who dug into Maya's life, searching for leverage. When that yielded nothing, Tiffany's tactics grew darker. She spread rumors through Atlanta's elite circles, painting Maya as a scorned ex-wife seeking revenge. She even contacted Maya's nonprofit, posing as a concerned donor, questioning her stability as a pregnant single mother. The lies stung, but Maya's colleagues rallied around her, their trust in her unshaken. Still, Tiffany's venom escalated. One night, a cryptic email landed in Maya's inbox, hinting at accidents if she didn't back off. Maya's blood ran cold, but she forwarded it to Nia, who urged her to go to the police. "She's unhinged, Maya," Nia said. "You're not alone in this." Ethan, caught in his own turmoil, began to see Tiffany's true colors. Her tantrums, once masked by charm, now grated. Her obsession with status suffocated. Late one night, he overheard her on the phone, her voice low and vicious, instructing someone to make sure Maya knows her place. Alarmed, he confronted her. "What are you doing, Tiffany?" he demanded, his voice sharp. She spun around, her eyes flashing. "Protecting what's mine, Ethan. She's a nobody trying to steal your spotlight." Her words, laced with venom, cracked something in him. Memories of Maya's warmth, her selflessness, flooded back, contrasting starkly with Tiffany's cold ambition. He began to investigate, digging through her emails, uncovering a trail of messages to her investigator, including plans to intimidate Maya. The truth hit like a sledgehammer. Tiffany wasn't just jealous, she was dangerous. Ethan's next move was impulsive. He drove to Maya's nonprofit, catching her as she locked up after a workshop. The street was quiet, the air crisp with fall. "Maya, please," he said, his voice raw. "Tiffany's trying to hurt you. I found proof. Emails, threats. I'm so sorry." Maya's eyes narrowed, her hand tightening on her keys. "Sorry doesn't undo what you did, Ethan," she said, her voice steady but laced with pain. "You chose her. Live with it." She handed him a USB drive Nia had prepared, containing screenshots of Tiffany's threatening email. "Give this to the police. Protect my child, not me." Her strength, her clarity, left him speechless. He nodded, guilt choking him, and watched her walk away, her silhouette a beacon of resilience. The confrontation with Tiffany was explosive. Ethan returned home, the USB burning in his pocket. "It's over, Tiffany," he said, slamming the evidence on the counter. "You're done manipulating people." Her face paled, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she lashed out, her voice a shriek. "You're throwing me away for her? After everything I've done for you?" Ethan's resolve hardened. "You did this to yourself," he said, walking out as her screams echoed behind him. The secrets were out, and the facade of their marriage crumbled. Maya, unaware of the storm she'd ignited, slept soundly that night, her hand on her belly, her heart steady with the promise of a future she'd built alone. The Atlanta skyline loomed gray under a November drizzle. a fitting backdrop for the reckoning unfolding in Ethan Maxwell's penthouse. The air inside was heavy, charged with the weight of truths exposed. Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, clutching the USB drive Maya had given him, its contents a damning chronicle of Tiffany Sterling's schemes. Her threatening emails to Maya, her instructions to a private investigator, and her venomous whispers to sabotage Maya's reputation were all there, a digital ledger of her malice. Ethan's hands trembled, not with fear, but with a searing clarity. He'd been complicit in Maya's pain, and now he had to make it right. Tiffany, unaware of the storm about to break, lounged on the sofa, scrolling her phone, her red nails glinting like claws. Ethan turned, his voice low but resolute. "We're done, Tiffany." She froze, her eyes snapping to his. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her tone sharp. He tossed the USB onto the coffee table, its clatter a gunshot in the silence. "I know everything. The threats, the lies, the investigator. You tried to hurt Maya." Tiffany's face drained of color, but she recovered quickly, her laugh brittle. "You're believing her? She's manipulating you, Ethan." But he was done with her games. He'd spent the night combing through the evidence, each word a stab of guilt for the life he'd shattered with Maya. "No, Tiffany," he said, his voice steel. "You manipulated me. It's over." The fallout was swift and brutal. Ethan handed the USB to his lawyer, who turned it over to the authorities. Tiffany's threats, though veiled, were enough to warrant investigation, and her reputation unraveled as whispers spread through Atlanta's elite. A leaked email, shared by an anonymous source, likely Nia, Maya's fierce protector, hit social media, exposing Tiffany's attempts to smear Maya. The backlash was immediate. Invitations to galas dried up, her so-called friends distanced themselves, and her father's firm, embarrassed by the scandal, sidelined her. Tiffany's world of privilege collapsed, leaving her isolated, her power stripped away. Ethan, too, faced consequences. Maxwell Tech's stock dipped as gossip swirled, and he stepped back from public appearances, his reputation tarnished by association. Maya in her Midtown studio remained a fortress of calm. She'd heard of Tiffany's downfall through Nia, who burst into her apartment with a triumphant grin. "Karma's real, Maya," Nia crowed, waving her phone. Maya nodded, her hand resting on her now prominent belly, but she felt no joy in Tiffany's ruin. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about her peace, her child's future. She focused on her nonprofit, where her art workshops were thriving, and her Etsy shop, now buzzing with orders for her vibrant sketches. Each day she grew stronger, her heart anchored by the kicks of the life inside her. Ethan, however, couldn't let go. Haunted by Maya's strength at the gala and the child she carried, he sought her out again. He appeared at her nonprofit one chilly afternoon, his face haggard, his arrogance gone. "Maya, I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "About everything. I want to be there for the baby if you'll let me." Maya stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. The man before her was no longer the cold CEO who discarded her, but a shadow of the Ethan she'd once loved, humbled by his mistakes. "This isn't about you anymore," she said, her voice steady. "It's about my child. If you want to be a father, you prove it. With actions, not words." She laid out her terms: financial support, regular visits, and absolute respect for her boundaries. Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening with something like gratitude. "I'll do whatever it takes," he promised. Maya didn't trust him fully. Her heart bore too many scars. But for her child's sake, she'd give him a chance to be more than the man who'd betrayed her. She wasn't forgiving him. She was choosing her child's future over her pain. Ethan's divorce from Tiffany was finalized in weeks, the proceedings quiet but decisive. He lost a chunk of his wealth in the settlement, but the cost to his pride was steeper. He moved out of the penthouse, trading luxury for a simpler condo, and began therapy, grappling with the ambition that had blinded him. He sent Maya a check for child support, unprompted, and included a handwritten note. "I'm trying to be better. For our child. For you." Maya read it, then tucked it away. She didn't need his redemption. She'd found her own. As winter settled over Atlanta, Maya stood in her apartment, assembling a mobile of paper stars above the crib. The city hummed outside, but her world was here, in the quiet promise of motherhood. She'd faced betrayal, threats, and loss, yet emerged unbreakable. Tiffany's downfall and Ethan's remorse were not her victories. Her strength was. She whispered to her belly, "We're free, little one." Justice had come, not as vengeance, but as liberation, her right to a life defined by her own resilience, her own love, her own unyielding spirit. The Atlanta spring unfurled in a riot of color, dogwoods blooming pink and white against the city skyline. Inside a small midtown hospital room, Maya Jenkins lay in a bed bathed in morning light, her body weary but her heart alight with a love so fierce it eclipsed all pain. In her arms rested her newborn daughter, Amara, her tiny face scrunched in sleep, a perfect blend of Maya's deep brown eyes and a hint of Ethan's sharp jawline. The labor had been long, 16 hours of grit and grace, but as Maya gazed at Amara's delicate fingers curled around her own, every struggle of the past year dissolved. This was her victory, her joy, her everything. "You're my home, little one," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks, each one a release of the battles she'd fought to reach this moment. The hospital room buzzed softly with life. Nia's laughter as she snapped photos, Ms. Loretta's warm hum as she arranged flowers, their presence a cocoon of love. Maya's journey to this day had been a tempest of betrayal and resilience, but here, cradling Amara, she felt an unshakable peace. The scars Ethan Maxwell and Tiffany Sterling had left were real, but they no longer defined her. She'd rebuilt her life, brick by defiant brick, through late nights at her nonprofit, sketches sold online, and the quiet strength of her community. Amara was the culmination of that strength, a testament to a woman who'd refused to break. Ethan had been true to his word, stepping into fatherhood with a caution that bordered on reverence. He'd visited the hospital earlier, his eyes wide with awe as he held Amara for the first time, his hands trembling. "She's perfect, Maya," he'd said, his voice thick with emotion. Maya had watched him, her heart guarded but open to possibility. She'd set clear boundaries, child support, scheduled visits, and no illusions of rekindling their past. Ethan respected them, showing up with diapers and a quiet earnestness, his arrogance replaced by a humility forged in regret. He wasn't her husband anymore, but he could be Amara's father, and for that, Maya allowed him space. Their interactions were civil, built on mutual respect for their daughter's future, a fragile bridge over the wreckage of their past. Outside the hospital, Maya's world was blooming. Her nonprofit had expanded, her art workshops, now a beacon for Atlanta's youth, their murals brightening forgotten corners of the city. Her Etsy shop thrived, her sketches, bold, vibrant reflections of resilience, selling across the country. She'd even started mentoring young artists, her voice steady as she guided them to find their own. "Your story is your power," she'd tell them, her words drawn from her own rebirth. Financially, she was stable, her savings growing, her small apartment now a cozy haven filled with Amara's things. A quilt from Ms. Loretta, a mobile of paper stars, a tiny onesie from Nia with "Future Artist" scrawled across it. Tiffany's shadow had faded. Her downfall, splashed across Atlanta's gossip columns, had left her a pariah, her socialite status reduced to whispers of scandal. Maya heard she'd moved to Miami, chasing a new circle to charm, but it didn't matter. Tiffany was a ghost, irrelevant to the life Maya had built. Ethan, too, had stepped back from the spotlight, focusing on his daughter and rebuilding his own sense of self. He sent Maya updates, photos of Amara's first smile during his visits, a small trust fund for her future, each gesture a step toward atonement. Maya accepted them, not for herself, but for Amara, who deserved a father who tried. One evening, as spring turned to summer, Maya sat on her apartment's tiny balcony, Amara asleep in a bassinet beside her. The city hummed below, its rhythm a familiar pulse. She sipped chamomile tea, her sketchbook open to a drawing of Amara's face, her pencil capturing the curve of her daughter's cheek. The past year had been a crucible. Ethan's betrayal, Tiffany's threats, the fear of standing alone. But it had forged her into someone new. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, her happiness rooted not in a man or a marriage, but in herself, her child, and the family she'd chosen. Nia, Miss Loretta, Her nonprofit colleagues, they were her anchors, their love a constant where Ethan's had faltered. As the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, Maya felt a quiet triumph. She'd faced the storm and emerged whole, her daughter's heartbeat a melody of hope. Amara stirred, her tiny hand reaching out, and Maya smiled, lifting her into her arms. "We're enough, baby girl," she murmured, kissing her forehead. The city stretched before them, vast and full of promise, a canvas for their future. Maya Jenkins, once broken, now stood radiant, her strength a beacon, her love a legacy. She was no longer Ethan's wife or Tiffany's rival. She was Maya, mother, artist, survivor, and her story, like the Atlanta skyline, glowed with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As Maya's journey comes to a close, her story leaves us with a powerful truth. True happiness is found in our own strength, in the love we nurture, and in the courage to rise above betrayal. Thank you for joining us on this emotional ride through heartbreak and triumph. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What did Maya's resilience inspire in you? Share your reflections, where you're listening from, and what time it is there in the comments below. Your voices make this story come alive. We're grateful for every moment you spent with us, and we can't wait to bring you another tale of grit and grace. Until next time, keep shining like Maya, and we'll see you soon.